Single mother feeds hungry girl, without knowing she was the daughter of a billionaire businessman. Jessica Thompson held tightly to the small insulated lunchbox as she walked through Central Park in New York City, with her 3-year-old son Tyler running ahead of her. It was another day of struggling to make the food stamps last until the end of the month. What she didn't know was that this afternoon would forever change her life, and the life of a child she didn't even know. That's when she saw the girl. Alone, sitting on the ground beside a bench, shivering despite the afternoon sun. The child couldn't have been more than 2 years old, wearing a dirty, torn white dress and crying softly while bringing her tiny hands to her mouth. "Mum, why is the girl crying?" Tyler asked, stopping in his tracks and pointing at the child. Jessica's heart ached. She looked around, searching for a responsible adult, but saw no one. The girl was completely alone, and by the way she was acting, it seemed she had been there for hours. "Where are your parents, sweetheart?" Jessica approached slowly, crouching to the child's level. The little girl lifted her tear-filled blue eyes, but didn't answer. She just kept crying, now reaching her tiny arms toward Jessica, as if asking to be held. "She's hungry, Mom," Tyler observed with a child's simplicity. "Look, she's just like me when I'm hungry." Jessica realized Tyler was right. The girl kept bringing her hands to her mouth repeatedly, a clear sign of hunger. Without a second thought, she opened the lunchbox and took out the only jar of baby food she had brought for Tyler. "Tyler, honey, can you share with the girl?" she asked, knowing this was all the food they had for the afternoon. "Of course, Mom. She needs it more than I do," the boy replied, showing a generosity that filled Jessica with pride. Jessica began feeding the girl with the small plastic spoon. The child ate desperately, as if she hadn't seen food in days. With each bite, her crying subsided a little more, and a small smile began to appear on her dirty little face. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Jessica asked softly, as she wiped the girl's face with a tissue. "Emma," the child murmured, the first word she had spoken. "Emma, what a beautiful name. I'm Jessica, and this is Tyler," she said, pointing to her son, who watched everything with curiosity. After the girl finished eating, Jessica picked her up and began searching for someone who might be looking for the child. She asked passers-by, the cleaning staff, but no one knew anything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Time passed, and no one came. Jessica grew worried. She couldn't just leave Emma there, but she also didn't know what to do. She thought about calling the police, but feared getting tangled in bureaucratic problems she couldn't handle. As the sun began to set, Jessica made a decision that would change everything. She lifted Emma into her arms and said, "Let's go home, Emma. Tomorrow we'll come back and look for your family." Tyler held onto the hem of Emma's dress the whole way, as if it was his duty to protect his new little friend. Jessica walked slowly, carrying both children when they got tired, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. Her home was small, just 2 rooms in a low-income neighborhood on the south side of New York City. The bedroom she shared with Tyler would now have to accommodate Emma, too. Jessica improvised a little bed on the floor with blankets and pillows. That first night, Emma woke up several times, crying and calling for Grandma. Jessica soothed her, humming the same lullabies she used to sing to Tyler when he was younger. Gradually, the little girl grew accustomed to her presence. The next morning, Jessica woke up early and made oatmeal for the 3 children. It was all she had in the pantry, but she divided it equally among them. After breakfast, she returned to the park with the 2 kids, hoping to find someone looking for Emma. An older woman selling water and soda near the park approached when she saw Jessica with Emma. "Oh, you found the little girl," said Mrs. Jenkins, a woman in her 60s who was there every day. "Yesterday, an elderly lady was here with her, but she left and the child was all alone." "An elderly lady? What did she look like?" Jessica asked anxiously. White hair, around 70, seemed a bit confused. She was talking to herself and didn't seem to know where she was. The girl cried when she left. Jessica felt relief mixed with worry. At least now she knew Emma hadn't simply been abandoned, but it raised other troubling questions about the mental state of the person responsible for her. She spent the whole day at the park, playing with the kids and watching every passerby, hoping to spot the elderly woman. Tyler and Emma were already playing together like siblings, sharing the few toys Jessica could bring. As evening fell and no one showed up, Jessica faced another tough decision. She took the children home again, promising herself she'd keep searching for Emma's family. In the days that followed, a routine took shape. Jessica woke early, made whatever food she had, took the kids to the park and spent the day looking for Emma's grandmother. Nights meant double the care, bathing both children with the little soap she had, making up stories to lull them to sleep. The money was running out faster than expected. Feeding 3 people on a budget that barely covered 2 was proving impossible. Jessica started skipping meals, telling the kids she wasn't hungry so they could eat. It was in the second week that Mrs. Jenkins brought crucial news. "That lady came by this morning looking for the girl," she told Jessica, "but when she saw you weren't here, she left. She seemed even more confused than before." "Confused how?" Jessica asked, holding Emma in her lap. "She kept saying she had to find her granddaughter, but when I asked where she lived, she couldn't answer. Just said her son wouldn't let her see the child." This left Jessica even more concerned. She began suspecting Emma might be caught in a messy family situation, maybe a custody dispute. By the 3rd week, Jessica's finances were critical. The food stamps had run out, and she relied on the kindness of neighbors to feed the kids. Mrs. Wilson, her 80-year-old neighbor, noticed something was off. "Jessica, dear, you've lost weight. And this little girl, where did she come from?" Mrs. Wilson asked one morning as Jessica hung clothes on the makeshift line. Jessica hesitated, but ended up telling her everything. Mrs. Wilson listened quietly, nodding in understanding. "You did the right thing, dear. But now you need to think about what comes next. You can't support 3 people on what little you earn." "I know, Mrs. Wilson, but I can't just leave her. Emma's used to us now, and Tyler loves her like a sister." "What about her parents? Have you tried finding them?" "All I know is her grandmother sometimes shows up at the park, but when she sees me with Emma, she leaves. It's like she's afraid of something." Mrs. Wilson thought for a moment before speaking. "Sweetheart, you'll have to make a choice. Either find a way to contact this girl's family, or you'll need to seek help." That night, Jessica stayed awake, watching the 2 children sleeping side by side. Emma had become part of the family so naturally that it was hard to imagine life without her. Tyler referred to her as "my sister Emma" to anyone who asked, but the financial reality was harsh. Jessica worked as a house cleaner twice a week, and the money barely covered rent and basics for her and Tyler. With Emma, expenses had tripled, and she already owed money to the owner of the corner bodega. The next morning, Jessica made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going straight to the park, she first stopped at the house where she worked on Thursdays, the home of Mrs. Peterson, a 75-year-old woman who had always been kind to her. "Jessica, what a surprise to see you today," Mrs. Peterson said as she opened the door. "And who are these beautiful children?" "Mrs. Peterson, I need to talk to you about a difficult situation," Jessica said, clearly nervous. Mrs. Peterson invited them in and offered juice to the children while Jessica told her story. The elderly woman listened carefully, asking questions about details of the situation. "You said the girl's grandmother appears at the park but runs away when she sees you," Mrs. Peterson asked. "That's right. Mrs. Jenkins, who sells drinks there, said she seems confused and talks to herself." "Jessica, I know many families in this area. Can you describe this woman to me?" Jessica described everything she knew about Emma's grandmother. Mrs. Peterson grew thoughtful for a moment. "You know, there's a chance I might know this family. A few months ago, a friend of mine mentioned a similar situation. A wealthy family from the Upper East Side was having internal problems. A grandmother with early memory issues who had disappeared with her granddaughter." Jessica's heart raced. Could Emma really be from a wealthy family? That would explain the high-quality clothes she wore, even though they were dirty. "Can you help me find out?" Jessica asked. "I can try. But Jessica, you have to be prepared for any outcome. If this girl really is from a wealthy family, they may have been searching for her desperately." Mrs. Peterson promised to make some calls and gather more information. Jessica left with a mix of hope and apprehension. On one hand, she wanted Emma to find her real family. On the other, she was afraid of losing her after everything they'd been through together. That afternoon at the park, Jessica watched Emma playing with Tyler when she noticed something odd. A man in a suit, clearly out of place in a public park, was pacing back and forth, carefully observing all the children. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The man seemed to fix his gaze on Emma for a moment too long, and Jessica felt a chill. Instinctively, she called the children closer. "Tyler, Emma, come here," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. The man slowly approached, and Jessica could see his eyes were red, as if he'd been crying. He stopped a few feet away and asked, "Excuse me, could you help me? I'm looking for a little girl." Jessica held Emma tighter, feeling the tension rise. "What kind of girl?" she asked cautiously. "My daughter. She's 2 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes. She disappeared almost a month ago with my mother, who isn't well." Jessica's heart stopped. The description matched Emma perfectly. She looked at the girl, who was quietly playing with a toy car Tyler had lent her. "What's her name?" Jessica asked, dreading the answer she feared. "Emma. Emma Mitchell," the man replied, his voice trembling as he spoke the name. Jessica felt her legs go weak. It was him. Emma's father was here at last. But when she looked at the little girl, who now called her Mommy Jessica, her heart broke. You're Jessica, aren't you?" the man asked, surprising her. "How do you know my name?" "My mother mentioned a woman named Jessica who was taking care of Emma. She said it during one of her more lucid moments." The man introduced himself as David Mitchell, a businessman and Emma's father. He explained that his mother, Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell, was in the early stages of Alzheimer's and had run away with Emma during an episode, convinced he wasn't taking good care of his granddaughter. "I hired detectives, put up posters, checked every hospital and police station in the city," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never imagined she'd be so close, being cared for by someone like you." Jessica looked at Emma, who was now playing with Tyler as if they were real siblings. The little girl had gained some weight in the past few weeks. Her hair was clean and shiny, and she smiled constantly. She was a happy, healthy child. "Is she okay?" David asked, as if reading Jessica's thoughts. "She is. Emma is a wonderful little girl, smart, affectionate, adaptable." David stepped closer, crouching down to Emma's level. The girl studied him for a moment but showed no recognition. Instead, she hid behind Jessica. "She doesn't remember me," David murmured, pain in his voice. "It's normal. Children this age forget quickly when they're away for too long," Jessica said, trying to comfort him. "But with patience, she'll remember." David looked at Jessica with an expression of gratitude and curiosity. "You took care of her all this time without knowing who she was, without asking for anything in return." "I couldn't leave her alone. Any mother would have done the same." "No, Jessica, not any mother. What you did was extraordinary." At that moment, Emma approached David curiously, drawn by the expensive toy car he'd bought on the way, hoping to win his daughter's attention. "Daddy?" she asked softly, as if a distant memory were trying to surface. David couldn't hold back his tears. He carefully picked Emma up, as if she were made of glass. "Yes, Daddy's here. Daddy looked everywhere for you," he whispered into her hair. But Emma wasn't comfortable in her father's arms. After a few seconds, she reached out for Jessica, wanting to return to where she felt safe. David understood and handed her back to Jessica, visibly moved. "She trusts you," he observed. "I need to know everything. How you found her, how you've been caring for her, what she needs." Jessica told the whole story, from the first day she found Emma in the park to that very moment. She talked about the nights the little girl cried from nightmares, how Tyler had become a protective brother, and the financial struggles she'd faced feeding an extra child. David listened in silence, nodding with a mix of admiration and guilt. "How much do you want?" he asked when Jessica finished. "What do you mean?" "A reward. For what you did for Emma, for the expenses. Name your price." Jessica was offended by the question. "I didn't do this for money, Mr. Mitchell. I did it because it was the right thing to do." "I know, but—" "There's no but. I took care of Emma because she needed care. Period." David realized he'd stepped on shaky ground and changed tactics. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend. It's just that I'm used to solving everything with money, and this situation is different. Emma isn't a problem to be solved. She's a child who needs love and care." Those words hit David like a slap in the face. He realized that even though he was a father, he might not truly know how to care for a child the way Jessica did. "Can you teach me?" he asked humbly. "Teach you what?" "How to take care of her, how to make her feel safe with me again." Jessica looked at David with new eyes. There was something in his vulnerability that touched her deeply. "It's not something you teach, it's something you feel. Do you love your daughter?" "I do, more than anything in life." "Then why doesn't she recognize that love?" The question hung in the air like a silent accusation. David lowered his head, knowing the answer wouldn't be easy to admit. "Because I worked too much, left her with nannies, with my mother, with anyone who could watch her while I handled business." "And why did you do that?" "To give her the best, to make sure she had everything I never did. But what Emma needed most was her father." Jessica's words echoed in David's mind, like a painful truth he'd avoided facing for too long. At that moment, Emma approached David again, offering him a piece of the cookie Jessica had brought for their snack. "Thank you, Emma," he said, accepting the gift with emotion. "Cookie good," she said, smiling shyly. "Very good," David agreed, and for the first time in weeks, he genuinely smiled. Jessica watched the interaction with a mix of satisfaction and melancholy. It was beautiful to see father and daughter beginning to reconnect, but it also meant Emma would soon be out of her life. "Jessica," David said as if reading her thoughts, "I can't just take Emma away like this. She's used to you, to Tyler. It would be traumatic to separate them suddenly." "What are you suggesting?" "That you help with the transition. Come work for me as Emma's nanny, at least until she gets used to me again." Jessica fell silent, processing the offer. It was an incredible financial opportunity, but it also meant leaving her simple life behind. "What about Tyler?" she asked. "Tyler too. Emma is used to him, and it would be cruel to separate them." "Where would we live?" "I have a big house. There are enough rooms for everyone. Tyler can go to the same school as Emma." The offer was tempting, but Jessica felt there was more to it. "Why are you doing this?" she asked directly. David hesitated before answering. "Because I realized I don't know how to be a father. And in just a few weeks, you made my daughter smile in a way I never could." That afternoon, Jessica returned home with her mind racing. Tyler was excited about the possibility of living in a big house, but Jessica had reservations about the move. Mrs. Wilson, who had observed everything, called Jessica aside to talk. "So they found the girl's family?" she asked. "They did. Her father showed up at the park today." "And how did it go?" Jessica told her about David and his proposal. Mrs. Wilson listened carefully, asking pointed questions about the man's intentions. "My dear, this could be very good for you, but it could also be a trap." "What do you mean, Mrs. Wilson?" "Rich men have their own problems. Sometimes they think money solves everything. You have to be careful not to lose your independence." Her neighbor's words stayed with Jessica all night. She watched Emma sleeping beside Tyler and wondered if she was making the right decision. The next morning, David appeared at her door. Jessica was surprised to see him there, in the middle of the low-income neighborhood where she lived. "How did you find out where I live?" she asked. "I hired a detective to investigate you too," he admitted bluntly. "I needed to know who I was leaving my daughter with." Jessica felt invaded but understood a father's concern. "And what did you find out?" "That you're a person of integrity. You work hard, take good care of your son, and have never had trouble with the law. I also found out you studied education." "How do you know that?" "It's on your resume, which I got from Mrs. Peterson." Jessica remembered leaving her resume with her employer years ago, when she still dreamed of working as a teacher. "Why did you stop working in the field?" David asked. "Life happened. I got pregnant, was abandoned by Tyler's father, and didn't have money to continue my studies. I needed to work to survive. And do you still want to be a teacher? The question caught Jessica by surprise. It had been years since anyone asked about her dreams. I don't know if it's still possible, she answered honestly. Anything's possible with determination, David said, and you have it. At that moment, Emma appeared at the door looking for Jessica. When she saw David, she ran to hide behind Jessica, but this time she didn't completely flee. Good morning, Emma, David said softly. Good morning, she whispered, still shy. I brought something for you, he said, pulling a beautiful doll from the bag he was carrying. Emma looked at the doll curiously, but didn't approach. Instead, she glanced at Jessica, as if asking for permission. You can take it, sweetheart. It's yours, Jessica said gently. Emma carefully took the doll and hugged it tightly. Thank you, she said to David, offering a small smile. Have you thought about my proposal? David asked Jessica. I have, but I have some conditions. Go ahead. First, I want to keep being treated as an employee, not charity. Second, Tyler must have the same rights as Emma in the house. Third, I want to stay in touch with my neighbors and friends. I accept all your conditions. Any others? Yes. I want you to truly commit to being Emma's father. It's no use me taking care of her if you're still going to be absent. David stayed silent for a moment, knowing this was the hardest condition to meet. I'll try, but you'll have to help me. Deal. The move to David's house happened at the end of that week. It was a mansion on the Upper East Side, with a garden, pool, and amenities Jessica had never imagined. Tyler was amazed by the size of the house and the room he'd share with Emma. The kids quickly adjusted to the new environment, exploring every corner with curiosity. Jessica, however, felt out of place. Everything was too luxurious for her taste, and she was afraid of breaking something expensive. David noticed her discomfort and tried to put her at ease. This is your home now too, he said. Don't be afraid of anything. It's hard to get used to, Jessica admitted. I've never lived in a place like this. I understand. I wasn't born here either. I built all this through hard work. How did you start? Jessica asked, genuinely curious. David shared his story as they prepared dinner together. He'd grown up poor, the son of Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell, who worked as a house cleaner. He studied hard, earned a scholarship, graduated with a business degree, and built his corporate empire, step by step. And Emma's mother? Jessica asked delicately. David's expression darkened. She left us when Emma was just 6 months old, said she wasn't ready to be a mother. That must have been hard. It was. That's why I threw myself into work. It was easier than dealing with the emotions. Jessica began to understand the man in front of her better. David wasn't just a cold businessman, but a wounded father who didn't know how to express love. In the first days at the new house, Jessica established a routine that included both children and, little by little, David too. They had breakfast together, took the kids to the park, and at night Jessica would tell stories to help Emma and Tyler fall asleep. David started joining in more, first just observing, then gradually getting involved. It was during one of these nights that Emma had a nightmare. She woke up crying and screaming, and Jessica rushed to calm her down. David appeared in the room moments later, concerned. "Daddy's here," he said softly, reaching out to touch his daughter. This time, Emma didn't reject his touch. She took her father's hand and let him rock her to sleep alongside Jessica. "She's remembering," Jessica whispered. "Thanks to you," David replied. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. As the days passed, the household dynamic began to change. David made sure to come home earlier from work to have dinner with the family. He took Emma and Tyler out on weekends, always with Jessica by their side. One afternoon, while the kids played in the yard, David and Jessica had a conversation that would change everything between them. "Jessica, can I ask you something personal?" he said. "Sure. Have you ever thought about getting married again, having more kids?" The question caught Jessica off guard. "After what I went through with Tyler's father, I lost trust in men. I poured all my energy into raising my son. And now? Now my energy is split between Tyler and Emma, she replied, avoiding what he really wanted to know. Emma loves you more than she loves me, David admitted sadly. That'll change, you just need time. What if I don't want it to change? Jessica looked at David, sensing something deeper behind his words. What are you trying to say? That maybe Emma needs you forever, and maybe I need you too. Jessica's heart raced. There was something in the way David looked at her that gave her butterflies. David, I know I'm complicated. I know I have a lot to learn about being a father, about being a partner, but I want to try. With you. Jessica stayed silent, processing what she'd just heard. She had shielded herself from love for so long that she didn't know how to react when it came unexpectedly. I need to think, she finally said. Of course. I just wanted you to know how I feel. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She watched Emma sleeping beside her and thought about how life had changed so drastically in just a few weeks. The next morning, something happened that would test all the bonds they'd formed. Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell, David's mother, showed up at the door. The woman was more lucid than she'd been in weeks and got straight to the point when David answered. I've come to take my granddaughter, she said firmly. Mom, you can't take Emma. She's fine here. She's better off with me. I know how to take care of her. Jessica appeared in the living room holding Emma, who squealed with joy when she saw her grandmother. Grandma! She ran to Mrs. Eleanor, who scooped her up with tears in her eyes. My beautiful granddaughter, Grandma missed you so much. The scene was touching, but Jessica could see the worry on David's face. Mrs. Eleanor was having a moment of clarity, but there was no telling how long it would last. Mom, you need treatment, the doctor said. The doctor doesn't know anything, Mrs. Eleanor interrupted. I'm fine, and Emma is better off with me than with this strange woman. Jessica felt a stab in her chest. To Mrs. Eleanor, she was just a stranger taking care of her granddaughter. Mrs. Eleanor, Jessica said calmly, you disappeared with Emma for weeks. I found her alone and hungry in the park. That's a lie. I always took good care of her. Of course you did. But you were sick and don't remember everything. Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell looked at Jessica with suspicion, then at David, then at Emma, who was playing peacefully in her arms. Emma, do you want to stay with Grandma? She asked her granddaughter. I want to stay with everyone, Emma replied with a child's simplicity. With Grandma, with Daddy, with Mommy Jessica, and with Tyler. The little girl's answer broke the ice in the room. Mrs. Eleanor noticed for the first time how Emma referred to Jessica and how happy and healthy she seemed. Mommy Jessica, she asked, looking at the daughter-in-law she'd never had. That's what she calls me, Jessica explained. I took care of her when you couldn't. Mrs. Eleanor studied Jessica carefully, noticing the genuine affection in her eyes as she looked at Emma, and how Tyler also seemed part of this makeshift family. You took good care of her, she finally admitted. I did, and I'll keep taking care of her. Mrs. Eleanor sat on the couch, still holding Emma, and for the first time she seemed to truly process where she was and what had happened. I got lost, didn't I? She asked David. You did, Mum, but you're back now. And I almost lost Emma because of it. You didn't lose her. She's here, she's fine, and she loves you. Mrs. Eleanor looked around the room, taking in the scattered toys, the photos of Emma and Tyler together, all the evidence of a happy family life. You've built a family, she observed. We have, David said, glancing at Jessica, and I almost ruined it all. Jessica moved closer to Mrs. Eleanor and sat beside her. You didn't ruin anything. You brought Emma into my life, and that was a gift. Even after everything I caused, families go through hard times. What matters is how we work through them. Mrs. Eleanor hugged Emma tighter and began to cry. I was so afraid David wouldn't know how to care for her, that she'd be alone like I was when I lost my husband. She'll never be alone, Jessica assured her. She has her father, she has you, she has me and Tyler. And what about you, my dear? Aren't you afraid of getting too attached to a child who isn't yours? Mrs. Eleanor's question went straight to Jessica's heart. It was the fear she'd tried to ignore all those weeks. "I am," she admitted. "But sometimes love comes without permission, and when it does, you have to be brave enough to accept it." David watched the two most important women in Emma's life talking and felt like everything was finally falling into place. "Mum," he said, "do you want to stay for dinner? Jessica always makes Emma's favorite food." "May I?" Mrs. Eleanor asked timidly. "Of course you may. This is your home too." That night, the dinner table in David's house was full for the first time. Mrs. Eleanor told stories about David's childhood to Tyler, who listened in fascination. Emma divided her attention between everyone, happy to have her family together. After the kids went to bed and Mrs. Eleanor retired to the guest room, Jessica and David were alone in the living room. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For not making my mother feel left out, for including her in the family. She's Emma's grandmother, and she's sick. She needs care, not judgment. You always knew that, didn't you?" "Knew what?" "How to build a family. I spent my whole life thinking family was about providing financially. You showed me it's about giving love." Jessica's chest warmed at David's words. "You're learning to give love too. I've seen how you look at Emma now, and how I look at you." The comment made Jessica blush. She was starting to accept that her feelings for David ran deeper than she'd imagined. "David, I need to tell you something," she said. "Go ahead." "When you showed up in the park that day, I was scared. I'm not afraid of you, but afraid of losing Emma. She had already become my daughter too. And now I understand that love doesn't shrink when it's shared. It grows." David moved closer to Jessica and took her hand. "Jessica, I want you to know that no matter what happens between us, Emma will always have you in her life, because you're part of her now." "What about Tyler?" Jessica asked. "Tyler is part of this family too. He's the brother Emma never had." At that moment, they heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was Emma, carrying her doll with sleepy eyes. "I can't sleep," she whispered. Jessica picked her up and sat with her between herself and David on the couch. "Do you want me to tell you a story?" Jessica asked. "Yes, the family story." Jessica looked at David, who smiled encouragingly. "Once upon a time, there was a girl named Emma who got lost from her family," Jessica began. "She was very sad and scared until she found a new family who welcomed her with so much love." "And then?" Emma asked, even though she already knew the story. "Then Emma's real family found her, and they discovered she now had two families who loved her, and everyone decided to stay together forever." "And they lived happily ever after?" Emma asked. "They're living it," David answered, kissing his daughter's forehead. Emma fell asleep right there in Jessica's arms, with her father's hand gently stroking her hair. It was a picture of a perfect family, built through unexpected circumstances, but united by genuine love. The next morning, Mrs. Eleanor woke up confused again. She asked several times who Jessica was and why there were so many children in the house. But when she saw Emma, her face lit up with recognition and love. Jessica understood this was how it would be from now on. Mrs. Eleanor would have good days and bad days, and patience would be needed to handle the situation. David decided to hire a nurse to help care for his mother, but insisted she continue living in the house close to Emma. "Family is family," he told Jessica. "We don't abandon the people we love just because they become hard to care for." Those words showed Jessica how much David had emotionally matured since they had reunited. A few weeks later, on a warm Sunday afternoon, David called Jessica for a talk in the garden while the children played in the pool under the watchful eye of Mrs. Eleanor, who was having a particularly good day. "Jessica, these past few months have been the best of my life," he began. "For me too," she admitted. "You turned our house into a home. You made Emma a happy child again. You made my mother part of the family, despite all the difficulties, and you made me a better father. You changed on your own. I just helped you see who you already were inside." "I want to ask you an important question," David said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Jessica's heart raced. She hadn't expected this. "Jessica Thompson, will you marry me?" Not because Emma needs a mother, but because I need you, because I love you in a way I never thought possible." Jessica looked at the simple, beautiful ring, then at David, then at the children playing happily in the pool, then at Mrs. Eleanor, who was smiling as she watched everything. She started but was interrupted by Emma, who had climbed out of the pool and came running toward them, dripping wet. "Mommy, Jessica, Daddy," she shouted excitedly. "Tyler taught me how to swim." Emma hugged them both, soaking their clothes, but neither of them minded. "Emma," David said, kneeling to her level, "how would you feel if Jessica became your real mom?" "She already is my mom," Emma replied simply. "But can she be even more mom?" Jessica laughed through the tears that had started to fall. "Of course, sweetheart. You can be even more of a mother now." "So you accept?" David asked, still waiting for her official answer. "I do," Jessica said, extending her hand to receive the ring. Emma clapped excitedly, as if she perfectly understood what was happening. Tyler, who had been watching from the pool, came running to join the group. "Are we going to be a real family now?" he asked. "We already are a real family," Jessica replied. "Now we'll be a real family with signed papers." The children laughed at the explanation, and even Mrs. Eleanor, who had approached, smiled approvingly. "My son chose well," she said, one of the most lucid remarks she'd made in weeks. The wedding was simple, held in the backyard of the house, with only close family present. Emma was the flower girl, Tyler was the ring bearer, and Mrs. Eleanor, on one of her clearest days, gave the couple her blessing. During the ceremony, the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union. Emma raised her little hand. "I object," she said loudly, making everyone laugh nervously. "Why, sweetheart?" Jessica asked. "Because I want Tyler to marry us too." The innocence of the response drew laughter from everyone, and Tyler, red with embarrassment, hid behind Mrs. Eleanor. "Tyler is already part of the family," David explained to Emma. "Now he's my son too." "Really?" Tyler asked, eyes shining. "Really, if you want." Tyler ran to hug David, who lifted him in the air just like he did with Emma. At that moment, Jessica realized her life had become far richer than she ever imagined possible. From a single mother struggling to survive, she had become part of a loving, complex, but real family. The following months brought new challenges and joys. Miss Eleanor had ups and downs with her condition, but she always maintained a special connection with the children. David learned to balance work and family, often taking Emma and Tyler to visit his offices. Jessica decided to return to school, and David made sure to support her financially so she could complete her degree in education. She studied at night after the kids were asleep, and David helped whenever he could. A year after the wedding, Jessica finally graduated. The ceremony was celebrated in style, with the kids proudly sitting in the front row and David standing to applaud when her name was called. "Teacher Jessica!" Emma shouted when she saw her receiving the diploma, making the whole audience laugh. After graduation, Jessica opened a small early childhood school in the neighborhood where she used to live. It had been her dream since she was young, and now she finally had the means to make it happen. The school was a success from the start. Jessica applied everything she'd learned from raising Emma and Tyler, treating each child with the same affection and individual attention. David was proud of his wife and often spoke about her in his business meetings. Some fellow entrepreneurs became interested in the school's teaching approach and enrolled their own children there. One afternoon, 2 years after the wedding, Jessica was at her school when she got an urgent call from David. "Jessica, you need to come home. It's about my mother." Jessica's heart raced. Mrs. Eleanor had had a particularly confused week, and they knew the disease was progressing. When she got home, she found Mrs. Eleanor in bed, but conscious and lucid, one of those rare moments when she seemed completely present. "Jessica, my dear," she said when she saw her enter the room, "I need to thank you." "Thank me for what, Mrs. Eleanor?" "For saving our family. When I took Emma from here, I was so afraid she'd grow up without love like I did after I lost my parents. But you brought love back into this house." Jessica held Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell's hand, feeling how fragile it was. "You always had love to give. You were just confused about how to give it." "I'll be leaving soon," Mrs. Eleanor said calmly. "I can feel it. But I'll go in peace, knowing Emma has you, that David has you, that even Tyler has you." "Don't talk like that, Mrs. Eleanor. You still have plenty of time with us." "It doesn't matter how much time. What matters is that I got to see you all become a real family. I got to see my son become the man I always knew he could be." Mrs. Eleanor spent the next few weeks alternating between moments of clarity and confusion. On good days, she told stories of David's childhood to the kids, taught Jessica old recipes, and gave life advice to everyone. On the difficult days, Jessica and David took turns caring for her, always with patience and tenderness. One morning, Mrs. Eleanor didn't wake up. She had passed in her sleep, peacefully, just as she'd wished. The grief was hard for the whole family, especially for Emma, who didn't understand why Grandma had gone far away and wouldn't return. "Grandma's watching over us from a different place now," Jessica explained to the little girl. "She's always with us, in our hearts." The funeral was simple, as Mrs. Eleanor had requested. During the service, David gave an emotional speech about his mother, and Jessica spoke about how she had been essential in bringing the family together. After the funeral, life went on, but with a constant longing. Emma sometimes asked about Grandma, and Jessica always answered with honesty and warmth. One day, a few months later, Emma was playing in the garden when she found an old photo album that had belonged to Mrs. Eleanor. "Mommy, Jessica, who are these people?" she asked, pointing at the black and white photos. Jessica sat with Emma and began explaining who the great-grandparents were, the uncles, the whole history of the Mitchell family that Mrs. Eleanor had shared with her. "Our family is big," Emma observed. "It is, and it's going to get even bigger," Jessica said, smiling. "What do you mean? You're going to have a little brother or sister?" Emma's eyes widened with surprise and joy. "Really? Really? Mommy's expecting a baby." Emma ran into the house shouting the news to David and Tyler, who were just as thrilled at the prospect. Jessica's pregnancy was smooth and happy. Emma and Tyler helped with everything, always wanting to touch her belly and talk to the baby. David was even more affectionate and present, determined not to miss any important moments this time. When Jessica went into labor, the whole family went to the hospital. Emma and Tyler waited anxiously in the lobby with David's parents, eager to meet the newest family member. After a few hours, David came out of the delivery room with tears in his eyes. "It's a boy," he announced, "and both Jessica and he are doing great." Emma and Tyler ran to hug their father, excited about their baby brother's arrival. When they finally got to see Jessica and the baby, Emma looked at the sleeping newborn and said, "He looks just like Tyler when he was little." "All babies look alike," Tyler said with the wisdom of his 7 years. "What are we going to name him?" Emma asked. Jessica and David exchanged glances. They'd discussed many names, but in that moment, one in particular felt perfect. "How about Nathan?" Jessica suggested. "Nathan Mitchell Thompson," David finished. "Perfect." Little Nathan brought even more joy to the family. Emma became an extremely protective big sister, always wanting to help care for the baby. Tyler, now 7, took on the role of the responsible older brother, helping with everything he could. One afternoon, when Nathan was 6 months old, Jessica was teaching at her school when one of her teaching assistants came to get her. "Jessica, there's a woman here who wants to speak with you. She says it's about Emma." Jessica's heart froze. Had someone from Emma's birth family come forward to claim some kind of rights? She went to the reception area and found an elegant woman, around 50 years old, who stood up when she saw her. "Teacher Jessica, my name is Christine Mitchell. I was married to David." Jessica's legs trembled. This was Emma's birth mother, the woman who had abandoned the family when Emma was a baby. "What do you want?" Jessica asked, trying to stay calm. "I want to meet my daughter. I want to explain why I left. I want a second chance." Jessica looked at Christine with a mix of anger and pity. It had been so long since she'd even considered the possibility of Emma's birth mother returning. "Why now?" she asked. "Because I'm finally better, because I got help, because I realized I made the biggest mistake of my life." And you think you can just come back after 4 years and want your daughter back? I don't want to take her. I just want to be present. I know you're her mother now. I see how happy she is, how you've built a beautiful family. I just want to be part of that if it's possible. Jessica fell silent, processing the situation. Part of her wanted to send Christine away, to protect Emma from the possibility of being hurt again. But another part remembered Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell's words about family and forgiveness. "I need to talk to my husband," Jessica finally said. "Of course. Here's my card. I'll be in town for a few days." That night, Jessica told David everything. His first reaction was anger and protectiveness. "She can't just show up like this and expect to come back into our lives," he said, agitated. "I know, but maybe we should at least hear what she has to say." "Why? Emma is our daughter now, legally, emotionally, in every way." "Exactly. Because we're secure in our love for her, because we can give Emma the chance to know her full story." David thought for a long time before answering. "What if Emma wants to go with her?" "She won't. She knows who her real parents are, but maybe she deserves to know why she was abandoned." After much discussion, they decided to meet with Christine. The meeting was set at a neutral restaurant, just the 3 adults. Christine arrived nervous, clearly rehearsed in what she wanted to say. She talked about the severe postpartum depression she'd suffered, how she'd felt incapable of caring for Emma, the fear of hurting her. "I didn't know how to ask for help," she explained. "I thought it was safer for Emma if I just disappeared from her life." "But you could have come back after getting help," Jessica pointed out. "I could have, but the longer it went on, the more I felt I'd lost the right to be her mother. Then I heard you two had married, that Emma was happy. That's when I realized maybe I could try to at least be a positive presence in her life." David listened silently, clearly wrestling with conflicting emotions. "What exactly do you want?" he finally asked. "Permission to meet her, to explain when she's older why I left, to be, I don't know, an aunt, a family friend, whatever you'll allow." Jessica and David exchanged glances. It was an impossible situation, with no right or wrong answers. "We'll think about it," Jessica said, "and if we decide to allow it, it'll be gradual on our terms. I'll agree to any conditions." A week later, they decided to tell Emma about Christine. They did it carefully, explaining that there was a woman who had known Emma when she was a baby and would like to see her again. Emma, now 4 years old, listened with more curiosity than anxiety. "Is she nice?" she simply asked. "We think so," Jessica replied, "but you'll only meet her if you want to and only when you feel ready." "And will she try to take me away?" "Never," David said firmly. "You're our daughter forever. Nothing will change that." Emma thought for a moment. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, sweetheart. No rush." A few days later, Emma decided she wanted to meet Christine. The first meeting was at the park, where Jessica had first found Emma, a symbolic place for the whole family. Christine approached nervously when she saw Emma playing with Tyler and Nathan, who was in his stroller. "Emma?" she said softly. Emma looked at Christine curiously, then at Jessica, who nodded encouragingly. "Hi," Emma said shyly. "Hi, sweetheart, my name is Christine. I knew you when you were just a tiny baby. Mommy Jessica told me you left." The child's bluntness made Christine swallow hard. "I did, and it was the worst decision I ever made in my life." "Why did you leave?" "Because I was sick and thought I couldn't take care of you. But now I see I should have asked for help instead of leaving." Emma studied Christine carefully, with the sharp intuition children have. "Are you still sick?" "Not anymore. I'm better now." "And do you want to be my friend?" Emma's simple, direct question made Christine start to cry. "I'd love to be your friend, if you'll let me." Emma looked at Jessica again, who smiled and nodded. "Okay, but Mommy Jessica is still my mom." "Of course, she'll always be your mom." From that day on, Christine became an occasional but steady presence in the family's life. She visited the house once a week, always respecting the boundaries set by Jessica and David. Over time, Emma began calling her Aunt Christine, a title Christine accepted with gratitude. She never tried to take Jessica's place, but offered a different perspective and unique experiences for Emma. Christine became especially helpful when Emma started asking questions about her physical appearance, which was different from the rest of the family. Jessica couldn't answer some of these questions, but Christine could talk about their family's genetic heritage. 2 years after Christine's return, when Emma was 6, something happened that would test their family structure once again. Jessica got a call from Emma's school while at work. "Miss Thompson, Emma isn't feeling well. She fainted during recess and has a high fever." Jessica rushed out of her own school and went straight to pick up Emma. At the hospital, doctors ran tests and discovered Emma had a serious infection requiring intensive treatment. The whole family mobilized. David cancelled all his meetings. Jessica closed her school for a few days. Tyler stayed with neighbors to watch Nathan, and even Christine showed up at the hospital offering any help she could give. During the 3 days Emma was hospitalized, Jessica never left her side. David brought food and cared for the other children. Christine helped with Tyler, and they all took turns, so Emma was never alone. It was during one of those nights that Emma, still weak but alert, said something that surprised everyone. "Mommy Jessica, thank you for finding me that day." "Why are you saying that, sweetheart?" "Because now I know I'm lucky. I have you, I have Daddy, I have Tyler, I have Nathan, and now I have Aunt Christine too. I have a big family who loves me." Jessica felt her eyes fill with tears. "We're the lucky ones to have you, Emma. And I'll never leave. Even when I grow up and get married, I'll live close to you." The simple promise of a 6-year-old girl made Jessica realize how completely her life had transformed since that day in the park. Emma made a full recovery and returned to her normal routine. Yet the experience had brought the family even closer together, including Christine, who had proven to be a positive presence during the crisis. In the years that followed, life took its natural course. Emma grew into a confident and loving child, Tyler matured into a responsible and protective young man, and Nathan developed his own cheerful and curious personality. Jessica continued running her school, which became one of the most respected in the area. David found the perfect balance between work and family, often working from home so he wouldn't miss important moments with the kids. Christine maintained her respectful yet steady presence, and over the years, she truly became part of the extended family. When Emma turned 10, she made a special request for her birthday party. "I want it to be at the park where Mommy Jessica found me," she said. "Why, sweetheart?" Jessica asked. "Because that's where our family really began." The party was exactly as Emma had wanted. The whole family was there, including Christine, her school friends, Mrs. Wilson, who had become an adoptive grandmother, and even Mrs. Jenkins, who still sold drinks at the park and remembered the day everything began as if it were yesterday. During the party, Emma gave a speech that stunned everyone with its maturity. "I want to thank Mommy Jessica for finding me when I was lost. I want to thank Daddy for looking for me. I want to thank Tyler for accepting me as his sister from day one. I want to thank Nathan for making our family even more special. And I want to thank Aunt Christine for coming back and helping me understand my story." She paused and looked around at everyone. Some families are born together. Others find each other along the way. Ours found each other, and that makes us even more special. Not a single adult in the crowd had dry eyes. Jessica walked over to Emma and hugged her tightly. "You're too wise for a 10-year-old, she said. "I learned from the best mom in the world," Emma replied. At that moment, Jessica looked around and saw her complete life. David chatting excitedly with Tyler about soccer, Nathan chasing a ball, Christine helping serve the cake, Mrs. Wilson telling stories to the other kids, Mrs. Jenkins selling sodas to the guests. It was an imperfect family, built from unexpected circumstances, but it was real, solid, and full of love. Years later, when Emma was a teenager, she wrote an essay for school titled, "The Most Important Day of My Life." She chose to write about the day Jessica found her in the park. "I don't remember being hungry or cold that day," Emma wrote. "But I remember exactly how the baby food Mommy Jessica gave me tasted. It wasn't just food, it was love in every spoonful." The essay was so moving that her teacher asked Emma to read it aloud to the class. When she finished, everyone applauded, and some classmates remarked how lucky she was to have such a close family. Emma came home that day with a special smile. "Mommy Jessica, I realized something today," she said. "What is it, sweetheart?" "You didn't save me that day in the park. We saved each other." Jessica stopped what she was doing and looked at her daughter, now a bright, thoughtful 15-year-old. "What do you mean?" "You needed a family just as much as I did. Daddy needed to learn how to be a real dad. Tyler needed a sister. Nathan needed older siblings. And even Aunt Christine needed a chance to make things right." Jessica sat beside Emma, amazed by the depth of her insight. "You're right. We all needed each other. And now we know that family isn't about blood or papers. It's about choosing to stay together and take care of one another." That night, Jessica told David about her conversation with Emma. They were in bed, watching Nathan sleep in the crib beside them. Even at 5 years old, he still liked sleeping near his parents some nights. "Our daughter is amazing," David said. "Our children are amazing," Jessica corrected. "Tyler has that same wisdom too, and Nathan is growing up surrounded by so much love that there's no way he won't be a special person." "Do you think we did everything right?" David asked. "I don't know if we did everything right, but we did everything with love, and that seems to have been enough." David kissed Jessica's forehead and whispered, "Thank you for finding our daughter that day. Thank you for finding me too." The next morning, Jessica woke up early and went to the kitchen to make breakfast for the family. It was Sunday, and she liked making special pancakes on weekends. As she mixed the batter, she heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Emma, who always woke up early on weekends to help with breakfast. "Good morning, Mum," Emma said, kissing Jessica's cheek. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" "I dreamed about Grandma Eleanor. She was in the park smiling and saying she was proud of our family." Jessica felt a shiver. Emma sometimes had dreams like that, as if Mrs. Eleanor was still nearby, watching over everyone. What a beautiful dream. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "You always can. Do you ever miss what life was like before you found me?" The question caught Jessica off guard. She stopped stirring the batter and looked at Emma. "Why do you ask?" "Because sometimes I think about how much simpler your life would have been if you hadn't found me that day." Jessica dropped the spoon and turned fully toward Emma. "Emma Mitchell Thompson, look at me." Emma raised her eyes, a little worried. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, to us. There isn't a world where I wouldn't have saved you that day, and there isn't a world where I'd regret that decision. Even with all the struggles, especially because of the struggles. It was facing them together that made us a real family." Emma smiled and hugged Jessica tightly. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, more than you can imagine." At that moment, the rest of the family started coming down for breakfast. Tyler appeared first, now a teenager but still affectionate with his family. Then Nathan, full of energy for another day of play. Finally, David, smiling as he saw his family gathered in the kitchen. "Pancakes," Nathan cheered. "Special pancakes," Emma corrected, "made with Mom Jessica's love." "Everything Mom Jessica makes is made with love," Tyler observed. "Just like everything she does," David added, kissing his wife. During breakfast, they talked about their plans for the day. Emma wanted to go to the movies with her friends. Tyler had soccer practice, and Nathan wanted to play in the park. "What about you, love?" David asked Jessica. "What do you want to do?" "I want to do exactly this," she answered. "Be with my family, enjoy our Sunday, be grateful for everything we have." "Kinda boring," Nathan commented, making everyone laugh. "Boring is good sometimes," Emma said, laughing. "It means we're safe and happy." After breakfast, everyone went their separate ways but always returned home by the end of the day, just like always. That night, when all the kids were asleep, Jessica and David sat in the backyard, in the same spot where he had proposed years ago. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Completely, and you?" "Happier than I ever thought possible." They sat in silence for a moment, simply enjoying the peace of the night and the feeling of a complete family. "Jessica," David said finally. "Thank you for sharing that little meal with Emma that day," Jessica laughed. "It was the best decision I ever made in my life. The first of many right decisions you made for our family." "For our family," Jessica repeated, liking the sound of the phrase. And there, in that garden, surrounded by the love they had built together, Jessica and David knew they had found life's true wealth, a family bound by love, formed not by chance, but by the conscious choice to care for one another. The story that had begun with a single mother sharing her only meal with a stranger's child had turned into a saga of love, family, and second chances. Emma never got lost again. Tyler found in David the father he never had. Nathan grew up surrounded by siblings who loved him. Christine found forgiveness and a new chance to be part of her daughter's life. And Jessica discovered that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose to build with our hearts. The end. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of love and family? Can you imagine what it would have been like if you were in Jessica's shoes that first day in the park? Sometimes the simplest moments in life can change everything forever. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you've ever experienced something similar. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more heartwarming stories like this one.